April 7th, 2015, continuation hearing for this county zoning board of appeals review. This county zoning case, section 714, Brucker Energy LLC, Liberation Energy Projects. Now, here, John Nizzle, here, Kiefer, Diana Iverson, here, Howard Zimmerman, Joe Newsom, here, and Ms. Nielsen.
All right. Understand that a few of those fellow aviators that perished here are members of our county. We should take a moment of silence for those individuals. All right, thank you. Understand it's our 25th evening here. Sorry about the venue change. Looks like we can squeak some people in. There's some seats up here in the front. If you guys want to come up here, we won't buy you a promise. We'll try to get everybody a seat so we can try to accommodate everybody as best as we can. We've got a list here. I've got a list of 6 names in front of me of individuals probably to testify, and another list of 80 individuals. We've probably been through half of them, so there's probably 40 more. So we're going to work through these people tonight and Thursday evening. Hopefully get through a lot of them. Try to wind down on testimony from individuals. With that, is there any post-information? Okay. We understand that Mr. Buchans will provide us rebuttal witnesses by the 10th of April.
Yes, with the one caveat that I'm kind of shooting in the dark, obviously, since I don't know what Mr. Blazer's people are going to say. My list will probably be overly large, so be careful and probably not call 90% of them, but there may be 1 or 2 as soon as I know. If he has something, I'll let you know as soon as I know.
Okay, well, yeah, just try to do the best you can. I understand, Mr. Blazer, you do have your list already submitted to Surrey Well.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I tendered my list last week.
Very good.
I actually already put 1 name up.
All right.
I do have a couple of other housekeeping matters, if I may.
Okay.
The first thing is I handed Mr. Blakeman
I'm going to hit it again.
You'll hear very little from me tonight.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay.
Good choice.
Whoever's going to testify tonight is going to be very happy because I can't say anything. I have handed Mr. Blakeman what we marked as Pleasant Ridge Exhibit 312. That is a second report from the appraiser, Mr. Maroos. He'll be presenting it during the rebuttal. I've already cleared it with Mr. Buchans. That's just so everybody can have it now. You also already have 311, which is his first report. The next thing is we tendered a motion. I had served it yesterday and all the attorneys, and I've given Mr. Blakeman hard copies today for everyone. It's a motion to strike significant portions of Mr. Mayor's testimony and exhibits. I'm assuming Mr. Buchans is going to want a little bit of time to respond to that.
We're going to take that up a little bit time.
Okay.
Give everybody a chance to look it over and read through.
All right. I handed out the latest version of our exhibit list, which takes it through last Wednesday, or week before last, through Mr. Hartley's cross-examination. And then the only other thing I had, this relates to RAM. You had already stricken Ms. Kelson's testimony regarding the range report. The only thing that was left was a bit of testimony from Whitney Bell. And I handed out that portion of the transcript at the last hearing. It's from March 10th. It's page 267, 2667, line 24, to 2668, line 2, and then 2668, line 23, to 2669, line 11. It was just a short piece of her presentation, talk about the land report.
And we'll take that up and take up the motion.
Okay. And that's all I have for now.
Can you indicate which of the 7 businesses on your list from March 25th are no longer?
One more.
What about Rutland?
No, Rockman, actually, Mr. Lucahans and I had reached an agreement on that. I also circulated, thanks for reminding me of that. We had agreed to handle what I was going to do with Mr. Rockman via an affidavit, which we did circulate the last time. I believe I handed it out last
Yes.
time. Okay, so yeah, he can come off the list as well.
All right. Okay, so we'll take both the motion under advisement from council, and we'll sort through that, we develop trade script and decide on that. With that, we'll go ahead and call our witness this evening. I understand he represents Indian Grove Township, Tom Brucker. Mr. Brucker, can you please be sworn in? You solemnly swear the testimony you shall give in this case now and hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the true self. You got it?
I do.
Thank you. You may begin.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address this body. I represent Indian Grove Township, which encompasses the city of Fairbury and surrounding landowners and homeowners, a little bit to the south, east, and west as well of Fairbury. In January of this past year, the Planning Commission for Indian Grove Township got together. They had some concerns, or a lot of concerns about the ordinance as it is presently constituted by the county. And so they got together and had a lot of discussions about particular setbacks. I know everybody here has had a lot of discussions about setbacks, but some of those discussions are pretty important to adjacent homeowners, not necessarily landowners, but homeowners who do not have a wind turbine, but they're sitting out there and out of the country, and these wind turbines are nearby, so they have concerns about how far these wind turbines are to their home. And we've had discussions about noise, I think, about the birds and bees and everything else, but it is a real concern for Indian Grove Township Board. And so they adopted this resolution that I think everybody has in front of them on February 25th of this year. And what we're asking for, that the county incorporate into their Livingston County Wind Energy Ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm looking at this and it purports to be a resolution dealing with a requested amendment to the county's wind energy ordinance. Whether or not that amendment ever goes through, it won't impact this project. It really has nothing to do with the criteria that are being considered by this board. I don't see the relevance of this presentation.
All right, Mr. Williams. We'll note your objection. We do also understand that this particular resolution will not apply to the current application that is out
We're
there.
well aware of that.
Okay, very good.
We're well aware that our purpose here is to come before this body and discuss our concerns and ask this resolution, which has been adopted by a township within this community that has a lot of people there, that we're concerned about this, and we're asking this to be kind of a comment, public comment, if you will, regarding this proposed Pleasant Ridge turbine. So we're well aware that we can't change it, but for the future down the road, we're hoping this resolution is going to have some impact on the county board as to the setbacks. I think the setback resolution is pretty self-explanatory. I'll entertain any questions. If there are any questions.
Well, members of the CBA, do we have any questions? Questions? All right. Any units of local government have any questions for Mr. Brucker? Mr. Blazer, Mr. Lukens, do you have any questions for Mr. Brucker?
Just very briefly, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Brucker, you're familiar with the members of the Plan Commission?
Yes.
Indian Grove?
Yes.
That includes Nelson Zier,
Yes.
Brett Fair,
Yes.
Brad Steiger,
Yes.
John Slagle,
Yes.
and Paul Sutter.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Good. Any members of the audience have any questions for Mr. Brucker? County staff, we have a question. Carolyn, you can state your name for us.
Carolyn Irvin. Is it your intent or expectation or suggestion that the ZBA and the county board consider this in terms of a special condition to
Yes.
this application?
Not only that, we believe that the homeowner should have some negotiable ability on some of these things. When, you know, they may have 3 acres out there by themselves, but it's a home. And they don't have a say-so if these wind turbines are coming right next to them. And how close they are under this ordinance is a real problem with us. So that's why we like to setbacks move back.
Any other questions from the audience? Anybody else? County staff, county council? Mr. Brucker, thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our list, Sue Gero, G-E-R-O. Please raise your right hand this morning. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give in this case and honor you shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state your name and address for us, and you may begin.
My name is Susan Garrow, 400 East Wanda Lane, Fairbury, Illinois. Okay. Some of you know me in this room from previous interactions. You also know my husband. We moved here 20 years ago to Livingston County from the suburbs of Chicago. We were in search of a better place to raise our children. We landed in Forest, and a few years ago, after a medical issue, we sold our 2-story house and bought a ranch in Fairbury. I can remember coming down to Pontiac for the first time and saying what a beautiful area this is. The wide open fields, grasslands, farmland. As I said, to settle in the forest and couldn't have been happier. A few months ago, I was returning from the city after visiting my folks, came down I-55 with my grandson in the car. It was dusk. And when we arrived in White, my grandson said to me, "Look, Grandma, that is so scary." He was referring to the wind turbines that were flashing, the red lights on top of the wind turbines that were flashing as we exited onto Route 47. There were so many lights, so many of them that he could not even focus on what he was trying to tell me. He didn't see the beauty of the fields, the grasslands, and the farmland. We live in an area that is so special that people from the north head south seeking something simpler, something quiet, something beautiful. A place where everyone still waves when you pass in the car. A place where you sit out on the porch and you can watch the sunset. We are now selling this beauty and peace to the highest bidder. New families are not going to seek out Livingston County to move to or raise their families because they know it'll be a short time until the next project will come along and our greed will prevail. You all don't know how wonderful it is to live down here, maybe because most of you grown up down here. By putting up the wind farms, the beauty of this land will be forever lost. We are literally raping our lands and not leaving the land that our forefathers founded. We are not, and we will leave next wave of technology is right around the corner. What happens when wind turbines are no longer the most profitable and logical choice for energy? What happens to the turbines? They will stand in our beautiful fields for years to come while we sort out the legal aspect of it all. And then we will have our fields of rusting, non-operational eyesores. There are no guarantees, folks, from anyone or any business. We need our land for this generation and future generations of this county. Don't sell out and leave our children with fields of rust. Stop raping the land that has been so precious to our forefathers and the future of Livingston County. Thank you.
ZBA, we may have any questions. Okay. County or local government, units of local government. Mr. Blazer.
No, sir.
Mr. Lukens. Members of the community, audience, anybody with questions, Ms. Carroll? Nobody? Thank you. Spoke County staff. There are some additional chairs up here if you guys, if you want to stand, it's okay, but there's chairs, and I think there's probably some chairs in that back room if you guys want to pull them out here. So, just throwing that out there. Okay, next on the list, Barb Cook. Barb Cook, are you available to speak this evening? All right. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give in this case and on hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right. Please state your name and address for our court reporter, and then you can begin when you're ready.
Barb Cook, 12496 East 1100 North, Shinola, Alabama. I don't have a very loud voice for speaking, and I've got kind of a cold, so I hope you can all hear me. There's a couple of issues I'd like to discuss with you tonight. One of them is a medical issue. I'm nervous about talking about that because, like the rest of you, I don't like talking about medical issues. But I know about, a dozen people who have been diagnosed with this and asked if I might come on and talk about it. So I said I would. I have no medical background, except as a nurse's aide when I was in college. And I think my job was probably bed maintenance, so I don't think that counts. I'm someone who has an art degree. A while back, many years ago actually, my dad and I were going to Salem, Illinois. I and my dad were not aware that the industrial turbines had been put in at that time. I don't know if you've been through there or not. It's a small country road with turbines on both sides of the road. I immediately became ill. I became dizzy, nauseated, and I don't know if any of you have ever had the feeling that you might pass out. That's how I felt. The reason for this, I had been diagnosed with vertigo prior to this trip. My first episode of vertigo, I was in a room at home, and we had filled-in bookcases, and it just seemed like the bookcases just popped out of the wall at me, and all the furniture and movies started spinning around. I became very dizzy. I was just struggling not to pass out at the time. I couldn't stand up because I was too off balance. And I found that if I sat, it actually started to subside. I started to feel better. I made it out to where my husband was, and we went to the hospital. I saw my doctor. He ordered for me to have physical therapy from the ear doctor, and after that, I had to have other testing done also. Even though I went through all this, we never did really come to a medical conclusion as to what was wrong. what started this process with the vertigo. There's different theories out there. One's a blow to the head, which, yes, I had that. We live on a redeveloped quarry, and I had fallen on a limestone rock, chasing my cat. Another theory, and these are just theories. I also want, before I continue, this is my experience. I'm not trying to make this into a medical, thing. It's just my viewpoint and how this vertigo affected me and how the turbines affected me. But, and I lost my place. That's what happens when you write on a little piece of paper here. There's different theories to vertigo. Blows to the head, which I had, and there's also one that has to do with imbalance of crystals in the ear. And when I went through physical therapy, I actually learned different exercises to balance the crystals in the ear or whatever, and other exercises that I learned to help with balance in the ears also. I actually swam to do these exercises, and I did that up until just last year. I was actually diagnosed with this about 10 years ago, or 9 years ago. I suffered for about 2.5 to 3 years, and during that time, I called the knockout sessions, and that's the session, the first one that I described to you, where everything starts spinning, you feel like you're going to black out. And I actually have friends that have blacked out from that. That's why I'm up here, because it can be serious. It's not just dizziness. Through all this, like I said, we never came to a real medical conclusion as to why I had this, even though I went through all this other stuff. I did find out through the years, though, that different things affected me. With vertigo, there's motion sickness, and there's also position. I was lucky I had both of them. And I know other people that maybe one thing affects them and the other doesn't. When we think about motion sickness, we think about like being in a boat and getting sick. With me, it wasn't like that. We live on a lake, and I'm in a boat all the time. It doesn't bother me. What happens with me is to watch something in a spinning motion, and that triggers it off. So, for instance, wheels on cars sets me off when it goes spinning by if I focus in on it. A minute hand on a clock can bother me. Of course, amusement rides, I don't know any of those. And you know where I'm going with this? When I was in St. Illinois, it's like a double whammy. It's on both sides of the road. Here's these huge turbines, they're huge, and they're spinning like crazy. So that bothers me a lot. And it seems like the closer I am to them, the more there are, and the faster they're going, the worse it is for me. I want to make it quite clear. These turbines did not create the initial problem of the vertigo medical cause. We never did figure that out, I don't think. But they, along with me watching other spinning motion, act like stimulus that triggers this dizziness off of me. After about 2.5, 3 years, after I've been on a prescription medication, it kind of dwindled down. I had maybe 3 of those really bad episodes, and then afterwards there's an aftermath where, the days are like uncomfortable, off balance, maybe dizziness off and on. Maybe you'll go a day and you're fine. And then the next day again, maybe 16 little dizzy things. Then I could go maybe half a year and no problems. But always had to be careful about what I focused in on, especially things spinning. I haven't had a major problem in years, but I still am bothered by looking at things in motion spinning. And I've learned through years to not focus on those things, not to look at them. So I go by the turbines, I don't look at them. When I'm driving, I look ahead of me or the road. I like to go on to where I live. Sounds corny to call it Cusco, but over 25 years ago, my husband and I bought a little piece of property on a redeveloped quarry. At that point, we're struggling financially, as most people do. My husband was trying to buy into a business. He was working 6-7 days a week. I was working. We didn't have time to go anywhere. We also had a son who was in every sport as possible, as most of us do. So this became our little world away from the craziness of our jobs and everything else. As the years went on, we managed to add on a few more acres. This had been set up by Dr. Gaz as kind of a conservation area and then subdivided. It's about 8 acres and a safe habitat for wildlife. We have, this number fluctuates, maybe 30 to 45 geese that live there all year long, and we have islands in the back. The geese, they rebuild these nests every spring. At the end of this month, we're looking forward to having babies, which I look forward to all the time. And as years went on, we added on a few more acres. We added on a couple of rooms. And one of the rooms, I call it our room with the indoor loft, because there's a little loft that only seats about 2 people up there. We have windows that overlook the lake, and we have no curtains on our windows because this is what we like to do in the country, and that's why we're on the lake. Our family grew. I have a 1.5-year-old grandgirl who I babysat with her today, and I'm frazzled tonight because of it. And I have her day tomorrow morning, so she loves to go up there and she loves to watch the geese. I don't know if anyone brought up the quarries. If they did, I apologize, because we have about 80 acres on our side. Behind me, about another 8 acres, and I'm not sure about, I'm saying right around the land, but, and then to the west of us, we have another huge quarry. This is just a natural stopover for thousands of birds that migrate through. And I'm not a bird specialist. I have a lot of bird books, but I'm not a specialist. So I'm just going to name a few. We, of course, have all Canadian geese, snow geese. Little herons are there all the time. Every year we have osprey that go through spring and fall. Last year we had a couple of bald eagles go through. We also have had cranes, and we've had white pelicans. I'm glad that Amber got up and spoke about the crane program. I believe she said it was out of Wisconsin. I'm not sure I'm right on that. But we also were involved in the program out of Wisconsin. We had 6 trumpeter swans in the back of our lake, and they had the bands on them. My husband and I managed to get the numbers off the bands and found that they were traced back to Wisconsin also. I would like to think that these programs are important and maybe have brought back endangered species a bit. Our ancestors sought to set up the Migration for the Treaty Act law, and we have the Protective Act for golden eagles and bald eagles. And it upsets me now because I'm reading about take permits and I'm reading about incidental deaths of the turbines, and this just makes me sad. Other animals, deer, are they going to be displaced from the turbines? I don't know. Dogs. Well, we all know that dogs have a more sensitive ear than we do. They hear things we don't hear. Like the little girl that got up here, I'm worried about my dog. Horses. I've had 50 years of experience with a horse. It's a 1,000-pound animal with a mind of its own. I'm not a veterinarian either. They have eyesight that's a little bit different from ours, and I can't go to that method. But they shy very easily, especially things that move. If it's a real windy day, I do not like to get on a horse. There's just too much action going on. Moving shadows, big one. They don't like it. Noises, don't like that either. You know what, blinking lights, I don't think I've ever been in a situation with a person blinking lights, so I don't know. But I do know one thing. If I ever came around a corner and I was face to face with a education. When I retired, all I did was substitute teach. During that time, after about 25 years, I saw some of my best friends and co-workers lose their jobs. PE, music, art. Now we lose, the kids lost. Now when the kids lost, the classroom teacher was stuck on overwhelmed. She was now everything. She was the art teacher, the PE teacher, the music teacher. I even went and volunteered to help a friend of mine because she's got such overload that he needed to do art. Does anyone have the answer for this? I don't know. Our state's in a mess. Our new governor is going painting a beautiful picture. It looks like he's going to take out just about everything. It's going to affect all of us in this room. Like I said, I don't know if the answer here is for education, except for one thing. I would hate to see for us to take in money, and it doesn't look like the turbines are the answer, but I would hate to see us take in money that might affect the welfare or homes or families of other children. McCoy Road. I just want Darryl to mention this. This is just kind of a question mark, a red flag to me. I live the road off McCoy Road. I live to the south of it. We've had problems in the past with the semi-trucks loading gravel because the gravel pits are down the road. My neighbor has a one-lane bridge. I don't want to go into it, but it's just a problem we've had in the past, and I don't know, maybe it'll be a problem. I was prepared to talk about Carlson, Illinois, Berlin County. Same one company, and I believe the series or two also were about Berlin County. I have best friends who live there. Although they are not affected by the turbines, they have friends who are. And we can go back and forth and discussing it, and I'm not going to go into that. You know, I was told their signs up, and one of their friends called me, we had a long discussion. And actually, Ted Harkey's name was brought up. And I guess after his testimony, there's anything more for me to say. I'm speechless. Except I hope none of us will never be another Ted Harkey story. Thank you. I'm sorry, I have some things to submit to.
Okay. Joan's got a question. Okay, we'll take it.
I'm sorry, I'm not organized. This is what happens when you base. Without releasing my medical records, I went and got a form that is, my doctor ordered me to go through physical therapy and a hearing doctor, and I have a picture of Trump response in there, and I think I forgot to say too that I worry about migration. We're about 3 or 4 miles from actually the turbines. During that time, I'm sorry, during that time, when our water freezes over, these birds are looking for running water, like in the creeks or rivers or whatever. And this year, I've never seen this before, but we had a little running creek going through our neighbor's pasture. We had hundreds of geese in there this year. And we're also foraging for food, but they stayed there for a long time too. So there's a picture of that in there on my phone. Anyway.
Do you have one more copy?
There's one for Mr. Weiser and ZBA and
All right, Joan, you got a question for Mr. Cook?
Ms. Cook, when something triggers your vertigo,
yes.
what do you do to treat it?
When I use, first of all, I'm not going to take medicine because I have bad side effects. I'm not on any medication. But when I was, I took what I use for motion sickness. Is that what's name? Susan. She's a pharmacist. Miracle Zinc. And since I haven't had the bad episodes, I really don't carry it with me anymore. And I've learned how to, I think the body gives us warning signals, like if something's going to happen, you can kind of sense I'm starting to get dizzy, and you refocus. Like with vertigo, there's two parts, motion sickness and this position. And if I start to get that feeling, I don't want to be laying down, I want to be sitting up. And as far as something triggering me up, I completely refocus on something else. If I'm looking at something like a turbine, I start to get that feeling, I just quit looking at it.
So there are medications, they just don't help you.
Methazine,
Will help you.
it will to a certain point. I mean,
Okay. The other dozen people that you mentioned that you know have vertigo, are they living near or within the footprint of this wind turbine park?
I think I brought them up because I wanted to make a point that this affects us in different ways. There's different theories about vertigo. I know two people that were diagnosed with a bad case of flu. They had one episode, that was it. I know other people, and one is in Chinoa, where she was just diagnosed about 3 weeks ago and went to a specialist in Chicago. And we're talking about the turbines. There's actually about 5 of us, board member of the Arts Center, and there's 4 of us on the board that had vertigo. And anyway, this one person said that she actually was more positional, and she didn't know if the turbines would bother her or not. And then there's another one sitting there that was, her story's more like mine, that certain things just set us off. And I forgot to bring up something else that sets me off, and that's a strobe-like effect too. But I happened to get into that. The thing of it is, because I haven't had the serious problems, I really don't carry anything with me, and I just try to not focus on them. If my husband's driving, or going to Wilmington or Richard, I say before.
Okay. You also mentioned the Koya Blacktop or Koya Road. What's your concern with that? Is it mostly about the traffic?
The traffic. Like I said, I don't really want to get into this because I don't know if it'll be a problem. The problems in the past, for instance, if Koya Road, if there's something going on with the railroad crossing on Koya Road, we're an alternative road. Also, with the quarry pits, we found out that the truck drivers will use us as a one-way road because of the weight limit, and they'll be unloaded, and then they have to go fast one way down our road, and then they'll load up, and then they'll go Koya, and they kind of save time doing that, which our road ends up being like a tar mess during the summer. And I don't know if we'll be affected or not, but it has been a problem in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Members of the local government have questions for Mr. Cook. Mr. Blazer, please.
Just very briefly, Ms. Cook, I typical doctor's handwriting. What's the
I
name
know,
of
this is not, I just want to show some proof.
it? No, I understand. What is the name of the doctor?
H-O-U-G-H.
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 And do you know what his area of expertise is?
He was my family doctor.
I'm sorry, what?
He was my family doctor.
He's a general practitioner?
Yes.
That's all I ask. Thank you.
Mr. Lucan, any questions? Members of the audience with any questions for Ms. Cook? Anybody in the audience? County staff, county council? Thank you, Ms. Cook.
Thank you.
Next on the list, I have Becca Fair. Becca Fair, are you available this evening to speak? here and show me the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address for our court reporter, and go ahead whenever you're ready.
It's Rebecca, R-E-B-E-K-A-H, Fair, 8290 North 1900 East Road, 1900 East Road, Fair.
Before you get started, I'm trying to decipher how you got these things. This is one.
As I said, I'm Rebecca Fair, and my family farm has been south of Fairbury since 1879. I'm fifth generation part owner of this farm. I was born and raised most of my life in southeast Livingston County. In my 20s, I moved out of the area to see what the big city had to offer. While I lived out of state, I still received our local paper, and every Friday I would take that paper to work and share the stories in it. It became quite a tradition. On the front page of one particular edition one fall was a picture of 6 or 7 combines manned by area farmers taking out the crop of a farmer who had recently passed away. In the background, you can see the grain wagons waiting to take the grain to the elevator, and the wives of these helpful farmers were providing food. The reaction of the people that saw those stories was priceless. They were very impressed with the way our community comes together to help one another and genuinely care for each other. As the years went on and this tradition of sharing the Fairbury Blade continued, they read more and more stories of this community coming together and supporting each other. When I still talk to my friends even today, they still ask about the happenings in our community. After 10 years of being out of state, I took a position at the university in Bloomington. This was my opportunity to come back and live in my community. I drove back and forth for several years. As I drove down 24 and 55 each day, I would see so many other of our residents driving to their jobs as well. I would see the many State Farm vans full of our citizens going to their jobs at Bloomington Normal. We have so many residents that drive every day to their jobs in Peoria, Pekin, Joliet, Chicago, Champaign, or Banner. It's the trade-off that we choose because we want to live in this community. Since being home, I have witnessed and been a part of so many acts of kindness and love in this community. To see how it comes together in times of tragedy and sorrow, as well as love and fellowship, is quite amazing. We support our neighbors, businesses, and schools. Most recently, a couple years ago, a 1% sales tax was approved by the voters to help support our schools. On the east of Main Street in Fairbury, you'll see the brand new Brian Munn's Safety Complex that houses our ambulance service and fire department supported by the citizens of this community. We have a couple of groups in our community that have worked very hard over the past couple of years promoting our community. Brochures designed and printed by these groups were hand-delivered to welcome centers all over the state and neighboring states. These groups are all volunteer, and they have personally paid for all the advertising that has been done. One local business has reported a 20% sales increase since the campaign began to promote our community. South of Fairbury, we have Slagle Family Farms. Slagle Family Farms supplies meat products all over the state, including the finest restaurants around Chicago. From spring until fall, bus tours from Chicago travel here for farm tours and dinners being held at the farm. Each farm tour and dinner is paired with one or more well-known chefs from Chicago. Following the farm tour, guests can attend a butchering demo and then head back to the barn and enjoy a 4-course meal prepared by using products raised within feet of where they're sitting. We also have Spence Farms, settled in 1830, the oldest family farm in Livingston County. The 6th, 7th, and 8th generation run the farm and have organized 2 groups of local farmers, stewards of the land and legacy of the land. These 2 groups function as food hubs that aggregate farm products and sell them to chefs, restaurants, grocery stores, and institutions. Just a couple of weeks ago, Slow Food International selected Spence Farm to represent the United States in the yearly almanac, which features 1 family per country. Spence Farms was chosen to represent the incredible innovation and resilience of family farmers in the United States of America, and to recognize Spence Farms' particular contribution to growing the art of taste and creating alliances with chefs and their urban clientele. Spence Farms have several tours and events every year as well, and it is the subject of a documentary called Sustainable, a documentary highlighting the Spence Farm. This is true sustainability. Our community also has Kilgus Farmstead. They are the only single-source farmstead milk bottling plant in central Illinois. On the farm, they have 130 registered Jersey milking cows, 75 calves and heifers, and 25 steer. Their milk is highly prized by cheesemakers, chefs, and others because of its increased protein and calcium. During the visitors tour, you will learn about the Kilgus family, visiting their milking parlor, learn how the cows give us their rich milk, and you can also watch the bottling processes on certain days. All 3 of these farmsteads provide tours. Most tourists travel from big city to see our beautiful landscapes, quaint towns, unique shops, and eateries, and our working farms. We need to consider how 136 industrial power plants scattered throughout our countryside affect commerce and education in our rural community. We also need to consider how the industrial turbines will affect the production of food and other farm products. And now here we are, the community coming together once again, this time to defend our land, our health, our property rights, and our basic human rights. In June of 2014, a map was being handed out on Main Street in Fairbury at the Pleasant Ridge Industrial Wind Project. Invenergy rented and moved into a storefront in downtown Fairbury. The buzz of these 2 events was all over town and in the rural community. Citizens were shocked to find out this was happening in our community and that they knew nothing about it. I contacted some of our county board members, of which I heard back from 3. Several of the board members have said on record that they didn't even know about the project. In order to find out more about it, I attended the open house Invenergy held at the Indian Grove Township in July of last year. I looked around at the maps that were scattered on tables and walls, and I asked a few questions of the Invenergy representatives. I asked about this flicker I had been reading about. The answer I received was by many lines. When I asked about home abandonment, noise, and sleep deprivation of property values, the answer I received was, I don't know anything about that. After sitting through these hearings and listening to the Invenergy speakers, I found that the answers I received at the open house were not the truth. They did know about these issues I asked about, they just didn't want to answer. The speakers Invenergy has brought to the hearings were trying to defend the very issues I asked about at the open house. As I was leaving the open house, I stopped to look at a map on the wall that showed the checkerboard project area. And I commented to an employee that was standing there, boy, these projects sure can tear a community apart. And his answer to me was, yes, they do. Wind developers like Invenergy slither into communities and pick winners and losers. Quotes from Invenergy employees saying things like, we pick the communities we do because they have good wind, and the community is welcoming to wind farms. Apparently, they haven't driven around the county and noticed the signs that show how the majority of the community feel about the 130-plus industrial wind energy power stations in southeast Livingston County. Perhaps if Invenergy would have opened a storefront and put out their full-page ads in 2006 and beyond, they would have understood this sooner. Invenergy should have been open to talking with, instead of down to, the citizens of this county. Instead, they operated under the radar of the majority of citizens and took a risk that this project would be approved without any knowledge of from the majority. But this is the way they choose to do business, and it's the risk that they take. All wind developers are very aware of the growing and ongoing opposition to these projects. There are 309 registered centennial farms in Livingston County. 1/3 of those are in the townships affected by this project. These are farms that for generation after generation have worked together with their neighbors, townships, and county to build a better tomorrow for future generations. For over a century, these families have built trust in each other and farmed together. As heard in previous testimony, Invenergy has used tactics like your neighbors are signed it and you're holding up the project up that your neighbors want, just to gain participation, taking advantage of decades of trust and care that we have for each other. This repulsive tactic is generally used by most wind developers. I have here with me petitions of over 2,000 Livingston County citizens and Livingston County landowners' signatures, and there are still signatures coming in. Some signatures have been removed because they were participants who have changed their minds about participating in this project, and they were removed in order to protect them from any lawsuits. The petition reads, "We, the undersigned, are in opposition of the Pleasant Ridge Energy Wind Farm project proposed and applied by Invenergy. We are also opposed to any further wind development in Livingston County." The action petition for is number 1, a vote of no from the Livingston County Board on the application submitted by Invenergy for the Pleasant Ridge Energy Project. Number 2, a revision of the current 2006 Livingston County wind ordinance in addition to further protections in the wind ordinance for the residents of Livingston County. One of the most disturbing aspects of this project is the lack of respect and integrity from wind developers, pitting neighbor against neighbor, brother against brother, parents against children, picking winners and losers, and misleading the public, and all in the name of promising riches. In an article published, we should have that as an exhibit. In an article published in Southwestern Ontario, Canada, Wind Concerns Ontario Executive Member Warren Howard said after the Invenergy Wind Farm project was terminated in Alma and Mornington, quote, "Awareness and education played a large part in the campaign against the wind turbine project in this community, which included speakers and information from other project areas such as Ripley, where turbines were blamed for health problems ranging from headaches and sleep loss to high blood pressure. The key thing in this project was that everybody knew what happened in Ripley," Howard said. "When you came to those public meetings and Invenergy said there were no problems, they had no credibility." Invenergy hosted several public consultation meetings over the course of the project, which Howard said fell short of answering the concerns of residents. "I just think Invenergy shot themselves in the foot a number of times," Howard said. "They never really treated people who live here with any respect or give them straight answers." There were several of us that went to the Invenergy open house in Fairbury, and after comparing notes with each other, we agreed with the statements of Mr. Howard when he said Invenergy never really treated people who live here with respect or give them straight answers. And we know about all the problems at California Ridge project in Vermilion County, the abandoned home, the washed out access roads, and other complaints from families in that area. And just to set the record straight, I am the one that asked Ted Harkey and others from California Ridge to speak in Fairbury, and he did discuss the offer from Invenergy to so-called soundproof his home. After receiving no information from representatives from Invenergy in regard to some of the issues I asked about, I did some research on my own, and I found the following issues and lawsuits involving Invenergy projects.
For
For the record, we're handing out exhibit CLC exhibits 133. 3, 4, 5, 7, 8.
Number 1, a notice of violation of failure to comply with the state pollutant discharge elimination system permit for stormwater discharges from construction activity at the Invenergy Stony Creek Wind Farm substation site from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Number 2, in August of last year, around 60 residents from Orangeville and Attica, New York, who have filed a lawsuit claiming that the Invenergy Stony Creek Wind Farm is ruining their quality of life, has destroyed property values, and affected their health because of noise and vibration. And this industrial wind complex only has 58 turbines. Number 3, a lawsuit filed against Invenergy project of 6 wind turbines on property located within 800 and 1,500 feet of the property of the Smolinskis in Wyoming County, New York, for significant diminishment of the plaintiff's use and enjoyment of his property, quality of life, health, value of property, and economic well-being. Included in this complaint, upon information and belief, these Invenergy project turbines have violated on a regular basis the town noise ordinance that restrict the noise to 50 decibels. Number 4, Lawsuit filed against an energy project called Willow Creek Energy LLC by Daniel Williams of Willow Creek Valley, Monroe County, Oregon. The plaintiff's complaints include violation of statewide noise pollution regulations, invasion of noise, vibrations, flicker, strobe, glare, and flashing red lights, causing the plaintiff to suffer from deteriorating physical and emotional health, dizziness, inability to sleep, drowsiness, fatigue, headaches, difficulty thinking, irritation, and lethargy. Number 5, in a noise complaint filed with the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin, Ann Jason Wertz argued that Invenergy and its Florida Energy Wind Center in Brownsville cost them their home and their alpaca breeding business and created health problems for the family. The family couldn't stand to live there anymore, their attorney said. They had to move from Brownsville to Oakville. We have been told that industrial wind complexes employ local people. When a group of workers was noticed boring a field within the footprint of the Pleasant Ridge Wind Project, local citizens stopped and asked, "Where are y'all from?" They said, "New Jersey." We've also been told that industrial wind complexes will keep our taxes down. My taxes have gone up every year since 2004, and this is while 2 wind farms have come online in Livingston County. And we haven't just researched information on the internet. We are people that get into our vehicles and see for ourselves. We talk to the people currently living in and around industrial wind factories all over the state, country, and the world. We drive to industrial wind turbines and listen and feel for ourselves. We've gone to wind projects currently under construction, and we've seen where the construction trucks are from. The citizens of this county have raised close to $300,000 to defend ourselves from this project, and the costs are still mounting. This is money that could have been used for products and services within our county. We've spent countless hours since June of last year when this project came to light at board meetings, committee meetings, researching and gathering information and fundraising. These are hours that could have been spent doing what we do best in our community, and that's helping our community grow and prosper. In the Stantec sound studies that were submitted by Invenergy in the Pleasant Ridge application under the heading of predictive noise analysis methodology, the potential impact of sound on receptors was estimated using the decibel module of WindPro and is based on ISO 9613 algorithms to estimate sound propagation. In the official transcripts from the Highland Wind Farm hearings in Wisconsin, Professor John Lampecusa, a professor of mechanical engineering and a member of the engineering design faculty, graduate faculty in acoustics, and registered professional engineer in the state of Wisconsin, read and reviewed the testimony of Michael Hinkert, Tim Osterberg, Joanne Blank, and Jesse Stoll, and he testified to the following. He was asked, "Do you have any further comments of accuracy of the WindPro model as it's used in making noise predictions here?" The professor answered, "As stated in the ISO..."
Mr. Chairman, this witness has no basis for commenting on the authenticity of the proposed expert in the other proceeding.
Oh, we'll take care of that. Oh, excuse me. UCLC Exhibit 28, I have certified copies of his testimony before the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin.
My objection goes to the fact that this witness can't authenticate this, can't comment on whether or not this testimony is in any way accurate.
Doesn't matter. The hearsay objection is covered by the fact that this is a certified copy of the document of a municipal body. That is an exception to the hearsay rule in the state of Illinois.
I'm not objecting to this as a hearsay, I'm objecting to this as a relevance. Foundation. This witness can't lay a foundation for this testimony.
She doesn't need to lay a foundation if it's a certified copy. That's number one. That's why you have a certified copy. Let me finish, please, Mr. Blaze. Number two, it is completely relevant because it goes to the issue of WindPro's accuracy, which is what Mr. Henker testified about.
I said that this person can't testify regarding WindPro's accuracy.
You're right, Mr. Lampecusa can.
Except that Mr. Lampecusa isn't going to be testifying in this proceeding. It's the same situation we've had before.
The objections keep changing all of a sudden when I tell them that there's no hearsay anymore.
as long as this is a certified copy of a previous testimony, she's just articulating what's in the document that's already been brought before the Public Service Commission, so we'll have to allow that.
Mr. Cornell, let me just,
What exactly is the original, which is commission certified roaster copy, so.
All right, and just to know, this is an official copy. It does have a seal, raised seal, it's marked UCLC Exhibit 28.
The question was, do you have any further comments on the accuracy of the wind curl model as it is used in making noise predictions here? The professor answered, as stated in the ISO standard, this method has an estimated accuracy of plus or minus 3 dB for predicting average noise levels from sources up to 30 meters above ground and for distances up to 1,000 meters from the source. The ISO model claims to be valid to plus or minus 3 dB for wind speed between 1 and 5 meters per second, measured at a height of 3 to 11 meters above ground. Outside of these conditions, no indication of accuracy is provided, but it can be assumed that the accuracy will decrease further. He was then asked, has the accuracy of the ISO 9613 method of estimated wind turbine noise been studied? The professor answered, the validity of the ISO 9613 method for predicting wind turbine noise was studied by K. Kaliski and E. Duncan in 2007. They found that the ISO method significantly underestimated actual sound levels by 13% on average. He was then asked, based on your experience, do actual noise levels deviate from the ISO 9613 predicted average, and if so, by how much? The professor answered, in my direct experience of over 25 years, and in the experience of other noise experts, actual levels can vary by plus or minus 5 dB or more from the ISO predicted average over durations of minutes to hours, depending on distance from source and atmospheric conditions. The loudest levels typically occur in the evening or night when surface winds are light and the thermal inversions are common. Unfortunately, this coincides with the time when people are home and they're trying to sleep. In my experience, peak levels of short durations, seconds or minutes, can exceed the predicted average by more than 10 dB in moderate temperature inversions at ranges similar to those proposed at the Highland Wind Farm. The professor was then asked, what other concerns do you have regarding the safety margin? The professor answered, in my professional judgment, these predictions are accurate at best to within 5 dB. In other words, a good rule of thumb for using these simplistic noise models is, if you want to achieve a 45 dBA, design for 40. This would provide a reasonable estimate of noise levels that would not be exceeded 90% of the time. Even with this safety factor, if you design for 40 dBA, there would still be occasional noise peaks in excess of 45 dBA, 5 to 10% of the time. Any noise limit is a compromise between economic benefit and social impact. It is impossible to have one without the other. I would now like to address the recent Cape Bridgewater Cooper study. Before these hearings started, Pacific Hydro, a renewable energy company headquartered in Australia, commissioned the Cape Bridgewater Wind Farm acoustic study. They decided to conduct this study to try to better understand the ongoing concerns being raised by a number of residents who live near the Cape Bridgewater Wind Farm in southwest Victoria. This was part of their commitment to working with these residents. Since the start of these hearings, the results of this study have been made public. This report is in no way a medical study, it is a technical acoustical study. There were several firsts in this study. Number one, Cooper took a variety of measurements in and around the 3 homes during both times when the turbines were operating and when they were shut down, with cooperation of Pacific Hydro. Number two, the measurements went beyond standard dBA to capture harmonics peculiar to wind turbines as the blades passed by the stationary mast. This yielded new readings branded by Cooper as wind turbine signature, or WTS. Infrasound below the audible range was captured as well. Number 3, the residents kept continuous diaries recording their experience of noise, which can be heard, vibration, which can be felt, and sensations, which were considered to be reactions to infrasound. The diary entries were later correlated with recorded measurements. This is a peer-reviewed study. Stephen Ambrose, an academician with a distinguished career devoted to protecting individuals from excess noise, congratulated Cooper on this effort. And in his letter, Ambrose noted the advances made by the study. Quote, your correlation of human response journal entries with scientific waveform analysis clearly shows hearing is not limited to audible sounds. Research continues to reveal that ear has multiple functions and capabilities. Another U.S. acoustician, Robert Rand, wrote, the correlation of sensation level to wind turbine signature tone level in the infrasonic and audible bands brings wind turbine acoustics right to the door of medical science. Medical tests in the homes, which are long overdue, can now be correlated directly to wind turbine signature. May the medical testing in homes begin without further delay. Canadian researcher Carmen Crowe, who has monitored findings from self-reporting projects as well as the recent Canadian government study, said, through the study design, their exhaustive infrasound measurements, the detailed diaries kept by the families, and Pacific Hydro's cooperation, this study has advanced the understanding of the role of infrasound in human responses associated with industrial wind turbines. Such collaborative efforts have set a new standard in conducting future research. Australian Bob Thorne, who had previously studied Cape Breakwater, experience of residents, pointed out several unique contributions of Cooper's study, and he said, the obvious support from both Pacific Hydro and the residents is the standout feature of the study, and it is clear from the text that the outcomes were not envisioned by yourself or the study participants at the commencement of the study. The approach taken is highly professional and supportive to both your clients, Pacific Hydro, and sympathetic to the residents who provided you with their assistance. Dr. Paul Schomer, Electrical Engineering Acoustic Standards Director, Acoustical Society of America, and past hired acoustician for Invenergy in the California Wind Project, has also reviewed this study. Dr. Schomer said, recently Cooper has completed a first of its kind test regarding the acoustical emissions of wind turbines. His is the first study of effects on people that includes a cooperating wind farm operator in conjunction with a researcher who does not exclusively work for wind farms. This study makes 3 very simple points. There is at least one non-visual, non-audible pathway for wind turbine emissions to reach, enter, and affect some people. Number 2, this is a longitudinal study wherein the subjects record in a diary regularly as a function of time, the level of effects they are experiencing at that time. Number 3, this periodic recording allows for responses as the wind turbine power changes up and down, changes not known by the subject. The results are presented in a 218-page report augmented by 22 appendices spread over 6 volumes, so that every single detail of the study has been documented for all to see and examine. The methods and results are totally transparent, and the 22 appendices and the main text exhaustively document everything involved in this study. Dr. Schomer goes on to say that Pacific Hydro requested the conduct of this acoustical study at 3 residential properties to ascertain any identifiable noise impacts of wind farm operations or certain wind conditions that could relate to the complaints that had been received. This study was to incorporate 3 houses that are located between 650 meters and 1,600 meters from the nearest turbine. This research represents a case study at 3 houses, each with 1 couple or 6 people. This is one sample and only one sample of a small group of people who are all self-selected as being very or extremely sensitive to wind turbine acoustic emissions. A similar group could be assembled elsewhere, such as Sherwood, Wisconsin, or Ontario, Canada. This study finds that these 6 people sense the operation of turbine via other pathways than hearing or seeing, and that the Earth's reactions to the operations of the wind turbines correlates directly with the power output of the wind turbine and fairly large changes in power output. Dr. Schomer goes on to say, attempts may be made to confuse these simple points with such arguments as it can't be proved that infrasound is the cause of the discomfort. But that again is a specious argument. The important point here is that something is coming from the wind turbines to affect these people, and that something increases or decreases as the power output of the turbine increase and decrease. Denying infrasound as the agent accomplishes nothing. It really does not matter what the pathway is, whether it's infrasound or some new form of rays or electromagnetic field coming off the turbine blades. If the turbines are the cause, then the wind farm is responsible and needs to fix it. Anyone who truly doubts the results should want to replicate this study using independent acoustical consultants at some other wind farms such as Shirley, Wisconsin, where there are residents who are self-selected as being very or extremely sensitive to wind turbine acoustic emissions. So some may ask, there's only 6 people, why is that important? The answer is that up until now, wind farm operators have said that there are no known cause and effect relations between wind farm emissions and the response of people living in the vicinity of the wind farm, other than those related to visual and or audible stimuli. And these lead to some flicker, which is treated as annoyance with noise. This study proves that there are other pathways that affect some people, at least 6. The wind farm operator simply cannot say there are no known effects and no known people affected. One person affected is a lot more than none. The existence of just one cause and effect pathway is a lot more than none. It only takes one example to prove that a broad assertion is not true, and that is the case here. Wind farms will be in a position where they must say, we may affect some people. And regulators charged with protecting the health and welfare of its citizenry will not be able to say they know of no adverse health effects. Rather, if they choose to support the wind farm, they will do so knowingly that they may not be protecting the health and welfare of all citizenry. Unquote. This study has opened up so many more opportunities for studies like this. We need to learn from these studies. We need to learn from the mistakes already made by other counties, states, and countries. 3 documentaries that have been produced called Downwind, Windfall, and Big Wind. These documentaries show the destructive impact of wind turbines being forced into communities in New York and Canada, and I highly recommend watching these documentaries. My parents taught me that if you need to make a decision, you make a list of pros and cons, which I've done several times in my life. However, I've also learned that although I was free to make that decision, I was not free from the consequences of that decision. To the county board, I would like to read a letter written by Jane Harper, Tipton County, Indiana Commissioner for 2009 through 2012. And Jane wrote this letter to warn the Howard County, Indiana officials about the many pitfalls of wind energy development. But its message is equally applicable to Livingston County as well. I am writing to you all as a former commissioner colleague who aided in the negotiations and agreements with EON Climate Renewables with Tipton County in 2011. From the onset, I was open to wind farm development in a small section of Tipton County because the commissioners had received no opposition, and I felt the landowners wanted it. My own family was offered an opportunity to lease land on EON, and we declined because my husband didn't want to farm around the towers, and I just didn't want to look at them. I set my own personal views aside and made decisions based on what I felt the majority of the public wanted. I was outspoken enough, however, to say that I would never support a plan to cover a large portion of the county with wind turbines. As it turned out, the problem was that when the decisions were being made to build Wildcat 1, the commissioners were not hearing from the majority. People really did not know this was happening, or if they did, they didn't perceive it to be as invasive as it was. As you know, public notices are small and often overlooked in newspapers, so not much resistance was present until the towers went up, and the people saw how enormous and intrusive they were. The red blinking lights even disturbed my own summer evenings when my home was 6 miles from the closest tower. You don't have the time to read, but all I can tell you. So in a nutshell, I just want to say that I wish I had the knowledge then that I have now. However, what I can do is try to pass some of what I know onto elected officials in the neighboring counties so that perhaps you can gain some wisdom from what I learned in the schools of hard knocks. In Tipton County, my 83-year-old mother is mad at me since I signed the agreements because she no longer has colorful birds coming to her feeders. My brother's view from his family dining room used to be a vast expanse of crops and natural habitat. Now that pristine vista is forever marred by giant metal structures. Neighbors hate each other. Back and forth letters to the editor have been selling papers for over a year now. Families are torn apart. And because the physical presence of these towers will be there for 30 years, these relationships will never be repaired. In short, this has become an issue that has divided our community like no other. It has torn our county apart. In May 2014, primary election is evidence the majority of the voters supported candidates openly opposed to wind farm development, and an incumbent commissioner was voted out of office due to his unwillingness to listen to the majority on any issue, including wind. If I had this to do over, I would never enter into agreement with any wind company now that I know what it has done to my home community. I'm not proud that my name's on those documents. The wind company has breached many parts of the agreement, but insists that their failures are minor. Their field representative is arrogant and cavalier in his attitude toward the people who are suffering with the effects of the noise and the flicker. You can't lose something you never had, so you're not losing this supposed windfall of money that the project reportedly brings in. What you will lose, however, can't be measured in dollars. You will lose the rural landscape as you know it. You will lose the closeness of community spirit because people will hate each other over this, and the presence of the towers will always be a constant reminder of the rift. Thus, the wounds will never heal. Please consider this. What do you think of a company that knows it has fierce opposition from a segment of the county citizenry, but would still want to build in your county? It is akin to forcing themselves onto you when they know they're not wanted by those in the project area who would be affected by their presence and are receiving no compensation for the change in their environment. How much of a community partner would they be when they really don't care about the wishes of the people? I don't know anything about the facts or which facts are true about property values and personal health issues, but what I do know as fact is this. Any issue that has become so contentious that it's caused a large group of people to assemble and vehemently oppose, and which has caused so much heartache and angst among citizenry, just cannot be good for the whole. I don't feel that Tipton County will ever fully heal from the deep personal wounds incurred by many from the placement of wind turbines in our county. I will leave you with one last piece of wisdom from somebody who has been there and done that. As an elected official and public servant, if you must go forward with approvals that allow wind farm development, unless you become the reason a wind farm was built in Howard County, it will be a decision you will regret the rest of your life, and you will join me. Jane Harper. I respectfully say to the county board that just because it's been done before and it's always been done that way is not a reason to abandon common sense about present needs and changed circumstances. We have an opportunity to learn from others' mistakes. I respectfully ask the ZBA and the county board that this application be denied for the following reasons. Number one, the special use is not consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the regulations and will substantially and permanently injure the appropriate use of neighboring property and will be detrimental to the public convenience and welfare. Number two, the project is not consistent with the Livingston County Comprehensive Plan. The Regional Planning Commission voted unanimously the application is not consistent. Number three, the Energy Pleasant Ridge Wind Project will be detrimental to and endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, and general welfare. Number four, the Energy Pleasant Ridge Project will be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the uses already permitted. And it has been proven the industrial wind turbines and power stations and overhead electric lines will substantially reduce the value of neighboring property. Number five, this project will impede orderly growth, development, improvement of surrounding properties for those uses permitted in the zoning district. Should the ZBA decide to approve the application with special conditions, I would like to offer the following special condition. I just narrowed it down to one, I have several. A minimum setback from non-participant property line of half a mile. This setback is inclusive of the minimum setback from the manufacturer evacuation zones shown in the Vesta and Nordex wind turbine safety manuals of 1,640 feet, plus 500 feet noise setback and 500 feet flicker setback. And a non-participant is allowed to waive a waiver for this provision. When the population density is such that we can't establish a wind turbine and not maintain at bare minimum a half-mile setback from a property line, then it's not a place for wind turbines. Thank you.
Why don't we take about a 15-minute break and then we'll get some questions for you. I've got 7:54, so 10 after 8, we'll get rolling. I understand the bathrooms are out here, they're right around the corner, so I think there's some downstairs too. I'm not sure where they're at downstairs. They're down there. CBA, do you have any questions for this particular type of Ms. Fair? Do you have anything? All right. Any holds of government with questions for Ms. Fair? Anybody out there? All right. Mr. Blazer, do you have any questions for Ms. Fair?
Just a few.
All right.
Ms. Fair, you mentioned something called Stewards of the Land.
Yes.
Is that something like a co-op?
Yeah, I'm not aware of. I think it is.
With food.
Do you know somebody named Nancy Mulroney? You don't know? You're not familiar with something called Calico Gardens? No? Okay. You made some comments about the Cape Bridgewater material out of Australia. Have you actually read that report?
I read all the reviews, the peer reviews, and I read the conclusion.
Have you read the
Because it's very, very long.
So you have not read the report itself? And the things you found about that report, where did you find them?
I think it's on
the internet?
Yeah.
Here you go. Let me take that.
I did, actually, I printed out the entire report from the internet with reviews, with everything I read, was word for word.
And where did you find all those materials?
I believe it was on Pacific Hydro.
All of those comments and everything were on Pacific Hydro stuff?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Are you familiar with a site called, out of Australia, called Stop These Things?
I am.
Did you get some of the materials from that site?
No, I think a lot of them came from Windwatch.
National Windwatch?
National Windwatch. Yeah, Pacific Hydro. And there was another Australian group as well. I can't remember the name.
Just a few questions about some of these materials that you provided us tonight. Let's start with this. This is marked UCLC 133. I hope I got the right one. This is from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. This is one of the documents you talked about, right?
Correct.
All right. Do you know what the resolution of this was back in 2013?
I do not.
Let's go to your UCLC Exhibit 3. That's this complaint filed by a law firm called Lippis and Lippis, that's L-I-P-P-S.
Yes.
Do you know what the current status is of...
My understanding is that it is federal court.
Do you know what the current status is? No? You have to answer all of them.
No.
Let's go to the next one. This is UCLC number 4, also by the same Lippis firm. Do you know what the current status of this proceeding is?
No.
Let's go to the next one. UCLC number 7. This is the one from Oregon. Do you know what the current status of this proceeding is?
I'm not sure what, I think this is the one that they were settled for $5 million.
Where'd you find that?
I actually read an article in Oregon paper.
You think that if Energy settled this complaint for $5 million?
There was an Oregon complaint that was settled. I'm not sure it was this one.
Okay. The next one is UCLC number 8. That's this article from dailyreporter.com dated April 2, 2010. You have that one?
Yes.
Do you know whatever became of this proceeding?
No.
And then let's go to UCLC number 28, which is this rehearing direct testimony of Dr. John Lemancusa. You got that?
Yes.
This is the Highland Wind Farm proceeding?
Yes.
All right. Do you know why there was a rehearing?
No.
Do you know whether the Wisconsin Public Service Commission accepted Mr. Lemancusa's opinions as they're stated in this document?
No, I don't.
Do you know if they accepted Mr. Hankard's model and testimony in this proceeding?
No, I don't.
Do you know whether the Wisconsin Public Service Commission in fact issued the permit for the Highland Wind Farm based on Mr. Hankard's testimony or model? No, you don't?
No.
That's all I have.
Mr. Ruby,
She's actually my client.
all right. Anybody in the audience with questions of Ms. Fair?
Could I speak up or?
If you can talk loud enough, or
Okay, Bureau Cavazos. Okay, I got a couple of questions. Was that Mr. Lemancusa, was that the one that reviewed the different testimonies in Wisconsin from the energy experts?
Yes.
Okay.
Professor Lemancusa.
Is that the same, I guess, experts that they had here?
Hankard and
Black?
Blakeman, sorry.
I think Phil and I can testify that Blakeman is definitely an expert.
Don't say that, I want to raise.
I guess, what did he say about their testimony? I didn't quite catch that.
Well, basically what he talked about was the ISO model that they use actually doesn't have a cushion. He recommended that
Mr.
there's...
Chairman, I think this is repetitive at this point. She's already read, not only do we have the document, but she read his question.
It's his question.
correct. I will agree that it is repetitive, and I do ask everyone to try to listen. She did read the testimony of him.
I guess I wondered, not necessarily the exact numbers, but what did he think it was a valid model? I didn't know what his opinion was, I guess, on their testimony.
His testimony that it says that it is simplistic. However, that it's only, the accuracy is only plus or minus 3 dB, which you should really have a cushion of plus or minus 5 dB in order to more safely cite these for the different issues that come with sound and the other issues that come up.
Okay, and that ISO 9613 model, and he said it was 13% basically underestimated, which means it's really louder than what this model shows.
That's what he said.
Okay. And during the temperature inversion, it would also be even louder than that. Is that
That's what he said in his testimony.
A lot of times you get fog when you have temperature inversion. We have fog.
Speak up, I'm sorry, I just missed what you were saying.
I have the power output numbers for the turbines. Can you get individual ones rather than a whole footprint of it?
You mean like in the Cape Bridgewater?
Yes.
They picked individual turbines that were with 600 meter and 1600 meter from around the families that were having the issues. Those were the two distances. So they took all the turbines within those meters.
I guess to clarify a little bit, for the 13% underestimation, it also depends on the power. So unless you get an individual power output, you really don't know what you have for these numbers. I guess that's what I wanted. That's all.
Any other questions from the audience? Anybody else from the audience out there? County staff, county council? Nothing? All right. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
How did you circulate the petitions that you got signed?
Most of them were door to door. We mailed out petitions as well to people within the footprint. We also had petitions of the information meetings that we had in Pontiac and Fairbury. I think those are the three main ways that we have.
When you mailed them out, were you targeting just the footprint, people in the footprint? I haven't looked at the list, I don't know where all these folks live, but where their addresses are, but you send it out to folks in town as well?
Those actually, most of those we did by door to door. And then the ones that are within the footprint, we went door to door, plus we also mailed them out.
I was curious how many might have gotten back that were not interested in signing your petition, if you kept track of any of that.
We had two that came back that were interested. Because actually mailed them back, they were self-stamped, so they could just put it in the mail. We had two out of all that we sent.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from the ZBA? We already been through that.
So, point of order, has that exhibit actually been anchored? The petitions, or they?
I entered them tonight.
They've been submitted.
Submitted.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the list, I have Harvey Zier. Harvey Zier, are you available this evening? All right. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give in this case and on hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address for a court reporter, and you can go ahead and begin.
My name is Harvey Zier. I'm 3100 Ashwood Drive, Riverdale, Iowa. My residence.
Mr. Jared, just out of curiosity, where is Urbandale?
Iowa.
Urbandale, Iowa.
USA, North America.
No.
It's several, contiguous suburbs of Des Moines.
Oh, okay. Because interestingly, you're in the petition, and I just happened to come across Urbandale and said Livingston County.
Well, on the petitions, I went out myself and had people sign petitions. I was at some restaurants and stuff like that with people outside the footprint this time. Matter of fact, one guy said the mailbox was in the footprint.
Okay.
And he's in the county.
Okay.
The mailbox was in the county.
All right.
I hope we can keep this straight. But Exhibit A is my forms. As I do. These are actual exhibits I'll be talking about. I can use them very important. And they're proof, they're all logical, one on my drama.
It would probably be better if you refer them by number. Let me just ask, I'm confused, that exhibit number,
I have it.
I guess, in order to have consistency, number 1 through whatever. Okay, so this is exhibit 1.
As I said, my name is Harvey Jr., a.k.a. Phil. I'm not an expert at anything as defined by Mr. Blazer, but I have experience in some issues that we will talk about and have talked about in the EPA. My background is I had a comprehensive business major with emphasis in accounting in 1972 from Illinois State University. Master's of Business Administration, Drake University in Tulane, Ohio. Certified public accountant. I'm a certified internal auditor, certified information system auditor, and among other things. I started my business career as a systems analyst, 1.5 years, for 1.5 years. Then I went to audit and spent 19 years, 17 years as director of audit, as an EVP auditor and an operational auditor for 3 different companies. The next 7 years I was head of agency administration and retired at 58 as head of agency administration. And I did 2 additional years work as an audit consultant for multinational manufacturing corporations. These are all exhibit 8, if you remember where I was reading from. Okay. Judith Gap, Cleveland County, Montana. It's exhibit 5 of Mr. Carsack's video during his presentation on wind energy. It showed that how happy people were with wind turbines, some of them for Judith Gap. I'm sure they are thrilled with the turbines that they were able to meet the needed to fund some of their local town activities. The site of the project appears to me to be near perfect for them. Exhibit 1 is from the Montana State Government, the Montana Government website. It gives some background on the Infinity project and mentions that the size of the turbines are similar to those proposed for our area, except the blades are a little bit shorter and nacelles weigh about 28% less. One of the comments made in on the website was on page 3, exhibit 1, was that the critical component of the project's success was approval by the Montana Public Service Commission to sell power to Northwestern Energy under a 20-year contract for $31.75 per megawatt hour. One of the comments that come out early in our presentations is whether they had a contract to buy the power, which is important. Some background on the site for turbines. Judith Gap is a town of 126 people. It's on page 4. The nearest town to Judith Gap is Harlow, which is 18 miles south. That's on page 5 of the handout. The total population of Wheatland County, Montana is 2,168. The population of Livingston County is about 38,000, which is 17 times the population density, or not density, population of Wheatland County. The land area of Wheatland County is 1,423 square miles, which is about 40% larger than Livingston County. This shows that the density out there is a lot less per square mile, and of course, we're not going to bother with people, I wouldn't think, because they're not needed. Second to last page on Exhibit 1. Like I mentioned earlier, the site is near perfect for the closest resident to a turbine is about 6/10 of a mile away. The second closest residence is over 1 mile away from the turbine, nearest turbine. The town of Judith Gap is over 4 miles away from the nearest turbine. Obviously, that is a lot less dense population out there allows that to happen. The last page is a map. At the top, you can see the town of Judith Gap with the green balloons up there. All residents are not marked, just the closest ones, so we did do a measurement to see how far they were away. And siting the Pleasant Ridge wind turbines was similar. If siting of Pleasant Ridge turbines was similar to Judith Gap site, these meetings with the EPA would have been over the first night, and I would have spent my winter in Florida. Some of the comments that come up for one of the speakers, Mr. Blazer asked one of the witnesses if government was pro-wind, and the witness did not answer the question. Matter of fact, Mr. Blazer asked me several times and did not answer the question. I will. Federal government is obviously pro-wind because they provide a 30% production tax credit, which is a write-off against taxes owed, and that can be transferred to other companies. And it subsidizes electricity generated at 3 cents per kilowatt hour. Over 3 cents per kilowatt hour. The Department of Energy, which is Exhibit 43, you see LC Exhibit 43. I will quote some things out of there. There's a lot in there. I'm not going to read it to you. But I'll take some quotes out of there. The first, the top says about the DOE wind program. The U.S. Department of Energy wind program is committed to developing and deploying a portfolio of innovative technology for clean domestic power generation to support the ever-growing industry. And targeting at 20% of the nation's electricity by 2030. Exhibit 42, page 3, there's a heading in there under mark acceleration and barrier reduction activities. Quote, DOE funded market acceleration and environment activities initiatives such as Wind Powering America and the National Wind Coordinating Cooperative were critical in enabling wind to break out of California and develop into the markets across the country, unquote. I point out that the government did not have to do anything to get Silicon Valley to go across the country with Apple and Google and all the other companies out here. Wind Powering America created the jobs and economic development model, JEDI, the National Wind Coordinating Cooperative built through public-private partnerships. So JEDI comes with a lot of help from the federal government. And that is my, okay. There's Pleasant Ridge. Exhibit 114, which I took 4 pages out, or several pages out, it's 8079, to show that DOE funds universities that are pro-wind. For example, Dr. David Lewis at Illinois State University grants from U.S. Department of Energy, $990,000 from 2006 to 2010, $107,000, 2009 to 2011, excuse me. Exhibit 6 is printed off from the Energy Information Administration website. And the report is a report done for Congressman. He did it in 2010 and 2013. That's Exhibit 6. On pages 12 through 15, it gives the breakdown of some of the subsidies given to wind turbines, and all subsidies for all energy production, as a matter of fact. With 72% going into renewables and 37% going into wind. 37% is part of 72%. Exhibit 7 is a pie chart that shows the subsidies broken down between the subsidy percentages and the electricity generation percentages. The 2010 numbers are inside the pie chart. The 2013 numbers, which come directly out of the report I just showed you, are on the outside, around the outside. I did not get a copy of the 2010 report, but I did find a copy of the pie charts. I was able to transfer the new numbers onto the 2013. Wind energy gets 37% of the subsidy and produces 4.3% of the electricity. Coal gets 6% of the subsidies and produces 40% of the electricity. Coal gets 1/6 of the subsidy of wind and produces over 9 times the electricity. We had a comment earlier on, a couple of meetings ago, that the nuclear plants were going to be shutting down or something like that. Well, this chart will kind of show you maybe why they're threatening to shut down. Inside in the nuclear part there, on the subsidies, they were 21% of the subsidies in 2010, and now in 2013 they were 10% of the subsidies. Now, those actual subsidies probably didn't go down. A lot more money went into the programs, but we went to other renewable energy places, so they are feel the need to say something about getting more money. So nuclear subsidy percentage was cut in half, with the share of electricity produced the same. Now we know why nuclear plants are doing a little politicking for more money. Again, pro-government, pro-wind versus anti-wind for government. Illinois state government is pro-wind. For example, in the back of the exhibit from President 114 and 09, Dr. Lewis at Illinois State University got grants from the United States of Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Activity of $190,000 in March 2011, $125,000 in April 2009, and $98,000 in March of 2012. And Illinois, the previous governor in Illinois, I don't know if it's passed the law or not, but the previous governor in Illinois said that the amendment is going to mandate electric companies to buy 25% of their wind energy, their electricity from wind energy by 2025. County governments pro-wind. The county will get a stipend for allowing turbines to be placed in their counties, unless, of course, they determine that on balance wind farms are a detriment to the citizens of the county. Therefore, state and federal governments are opposite pro-wind. Easement. Residence Exhibit 7, 6, and 8 are easement agreements. Exhibit 7, my Exhibit 2, is called Agreement Regarding Easement, from which I got the following information. Under item 2, easements, quote, F, permitting an electromagnetic, audio, flicker, visual, light, noise, vibration, air turbulence, weight, electric, radio interference, shadow, or other effects attributable to wind power facilities or any other operational or development activities. Drones are becoming big in the farmers' industry, used by farmers to scout crops during the growing season. The applicants proposed siting 3 wind turbines within 1,000 feet of my farm. How will the air turbulence, weight, electric, and radio interference affect me and other non-participating farmers on new technology that comes along? Farming has changed dramatically in the last 10 to 15 years. What new technology will be used effectively because will not be able to be used effectively because air turbulence, weight, electron, and radio interference. I wondered about claiming that there were few complaints from people within the footprint of the wind farm. Well, the easement gives the wind farm permission to produce all these things, and they're being paid for it. So and one of them is all other effects attributed to wind power facilities. So I imagine there wouldn't be any legitimate complaints because they're being paid for it. The agreement gives the grantee the right to produce the causes of the complaints. Other effects attributable to wind farm facilities or any other operational development activities, but obviously there would be nothing, again, to complain about. And then actually, in Exhibit 6, in my Exhibit 3, called Neighbor Agreement, has a section called Term. I quote, the term of this agreement and the easement described above, the term shall commence. I can find no, unquote, I can find no other place in the agreement that defines what the easements are allowing Pleasant Ridge Energy LLC to do. They're paying for something. In the neighbor agreement easement, buying the same rights as Exhibit 7, called the agreement regarding easements, any additional or any less rights. All easements I have seen have been specifically say what rights you are given to the grantee. I don't see that in the neighbor agreement. The old adage, you don't get something for nothing, is my antenna. What is Pleasant Ridge Energy LLC buying rights to? Pleasant Ridge Exhibit 8 years Exhibit 4, is called the Cooperation and Release Agreement. This agreement between Pleasant Ridge Energy and LLC and the Village of Forest releases the 1.5 mile buffer zone between the Village of Forest and the wind turbines. It does say that there is a new buffer zone of 1.5 miles created. Item 3B states that, I quote, the village also expressly agrees that it will not impose the placement by Pleasant Ridge of any project infrastructure, including but not limited to transmission systems, substations, underground electrical connections, systems, or road assets, regardless of the distance from any portion of the village system from the village of boundary. Could this be a problem for Pleasant Ridge? If Pleasant Ridge LLC is sold, or if the forest needs to expand, because they're right up against the city limits. There's no mention in the agreement about permitting or not permitting electromagnetic, audio flicker, all these kind of things I mentioned. That was mentioned in Exhibit 7. This could be a problem for the future. I'll get down to one here, the power of sleep. Exhibit. Time magazine article that I think is important when you look at this for the wind farm or not. I have to credit my son-in-law Dan Fair with this presentation. He saw this and read this article in the Time magazine while he was waiting for my daughter to come out of surgery last year. It does not mention or even allude to wind turbines. I doubt that the author or any of those contributing to the report ever heard of wind turbine because of resistance to wind turbine because of sleep problems. There are articles about the consequences of sleep deprivation and how serious these consequences are to human health. I strongly encourage anyone in the sound of my voice to get a copy and read it at the Third Library. I have highlighted some of the article, but after reading it again, I saw the more important information that I didn't highlight that I should have. I have read the article several times trying to summarize it for the ZBA, but cannot. It's too long to read to you, because I don't want to really destroy your patience when you'll have to come to me. And print is too small for me to read. This information in this article is on why the brain needs 8 consecutive hours of sleep, what the brain does throughout the night while we sleep, and why it cannot do it while we're not asleep. That the brain works hard cleaning up the mess from its work during the day, and it also mentions how dramatically the brain changes while you sleep, which is truly amazing. Just because you feel rested does not mean your brain has phases like chores. The health issues that we would be less prone to get if we got as much sleep as our bodies are designed for. For example, on page 4, I hand out page 5. Getting the recommended 78 hours, quote now, getting the recommended 7 to 8 hours sleep each night can improve concentration, sharpen planning and memory skills, maintain the fat burning system that regulate our weight. If every one of us slept as much as we're supposed to, we'd be lighter, less prone to developing type 2 diabetes, and most likely better equipped to battle depression and anxiety. We might even lower our risk for Alzheimer's disease, osteoporosis, and cancer. On page 7, right-hand column, second paragraph, I am now looking at, I quote, I am now looking at and thinking of sleep as an environmental exposure. This is Brown University's Arskadon. Carskadon. I don't think that's what it's right. Which means we should look to sleep, at sleep, similar to we look at air pollution exposure, secondhand smoke, toxins, or toxins in our drinking water. Page 7 paragraphs, last 2 paragraphs. Well, given what science are learning about how much the body, especially the brain, needs a solid, consistent amount of sleep, even though doctors aren't waiting for more studies to prove that we, as a species, don't intuitively. That cheating ourselves of sleep is depriving us from taking advantage of nature's most powerful drugs. We know now that there is a lasting price to pay for sleep loss, says P-E-A-S-D-A. We used to think that if you don't sleep enough, you can sleep more later and be fine tomorrow. We now know that if you push the system enough, that's not true. Dr. Jeffrey Ellenbogen testified that wind turbines do not directly affect human health. I would agree with that. He testified that several people he interviewed had existing health problems before the wind turbines came to their area. I don't argue with that either. He did not say, that I could find, that lack of sleep would not exacerbate any health problems that people already had. Sleep loss caused by wind turbines could make tolerable health issues worse to the point of being intolerable. The loss of sleep or interruption of sleep by whatever means will cause problems with proper functioning of the brain. The article points out that long-term effects of sleep deprivation cannot be completely reversed by getting extra sleep later. Even though getting extra sleep later will help mitigate effects, but not completely reverse the effects. In other words, sleep during the week and then sleep an extra few hours on weekends will not correct all the damage done during the week. She did say that the extra sleep on the weekend will be beneficial, but not completely solve the problem. Just because you feel rested after catching up on sleep does not mean the damage to your brain has been corrected. She compared eating healthy only on the weekend, but eating junk food during the week. The article mentions some stressors that cause sleep deprivation. What I would say is, why do we want to add more, even more stressors to our sleep problems, to cause sleep problems? In reference to some of Attorney Blazer's comments on decommissioning, our experts were questioned by Mr. Blazer, and I don't have any handout except for Exhibit 8. Our experts were questioned by Mr. Blazer about using any one of 4 contractors for decommissioning cost estimates. Made it sound like that was a bad thing. We didn't do that. They didn't do that. But Stantec, Dan Rothman, did not mention using a construction contractor and the determination of the net cost for $37,000 per turbine. Talking to a contractor about what that actually does the work and pays expenses incurred from decommissioning sounds appropriate, because the engineers do not have the accountability of losing money on a project if they underestimate the net cost, or getting the bid to do the work if they overestimate the cost. Therefore, I took Mr. Blazer's challenge. I called the 4 construction contractors he mentioned. I had a long conversation with one estimator who worked on the estimating costs for wind farms. He brought up his computer. He said he'd bring up on his computer, and he did a wind farm they worked on, and it was 1/3 the size of the proposed Pleasant Ridge project, but with larger turbines, a little larger turbines. He asked me questions about the project. I asked him questions about estimating. The facts that came out were, he said Stantec was a quality company, but could not understand how they could estimate their net cost for decommissioning so low. And I misspoke, and I talked to him. I said 41,000, and it was actually 37,000. Minus $5. So he thought that number, he just couldn't understand why that number was so low. He said that we need to get a construction contractor to do an estimate, like Mr. Glazer kind of insinuated. But he might be biased, because for he was a construction contractor. I told him we did get a local contractor's estimate of over $200,000 net cost per turbine for decommissioning. After some discussion, he said engineers usually underestimate the cost and overestimate the salvage value. He said at the end of the conversation, towards the end of the conversation, that the net cost per turbine would probably be somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000 per turbine. To justify the steel and copper price, Mr. Blazer stated that steel and copper were world markets, which is true, but the price is not the same around the world. It depends on where the demand is versus where the supply is, and getting the cost of getting supply to where it is demanded, the product is demanded, have to be considered. I called some local recyclers. Only one would talk about the price they would pay for copper. They said the market quotes number 1 copper, which is pure copper with no coatings. I asked them about what they pay for copper in a generator. And they said if I brought one in, they would give me a quote. Now, obviously, I wasn't going to bring one in. Maybe it's local somewhere, but I'd be very close. If the generator was not broken down and the copper and steel separated, they would pay 15 cents a pound or less. I asked if they would pay $1.60 a pound for pure copper with no coatings. In other words, number one copper. They said, that's a little high. They would quote me a number, but they definitely said they would pay $1.60. Stand tax used at $2.60 a pound. Now keep in mind, I did this at the same time that the stand tax report was put out to us. The stand tax did use the $2.60 a pound in their estimate, and did not, that I could find, have any cost listed to show how it would be disassembled in the generator to clean copper, which would be very expensive. Any farmer can tell you that rarely get market prices for commodities, and steel and copper are commodities. The vast majority of the time, the price they get is well under the market price. The ethanol plant gives the city has helped us in our area out, help keep the corn price that we get paid closer to the market price because the corn is used there. Like I said earlier, corn is a world market. And you can sell, I think the last time I heard, corn in China is $10 a bushel. Believe me, we won't get $10 a bushel because it's got to go from here down to Mississippi, across the ocean, there. And so the price there is different. The cash price on Thursday, April 2nd, 2015 was $3.63 at Kansas in Livingston County. At Memphis, for example, on the river, it was $4.01.5. Memphis, Tennessee. And a multitude of other below market prices in Livingston County and Gibson City. The market price closed that day at $3.86.5. So we don't get the market price tonight, bottom line. And at times when we had the shortage in 2012, I actually got more than, and probably a lot of other farmers did do more than the market price, even though it's a Chicago quoted market, and we sold it in Illinois. Mr. Blunt, major question. Two experts witnessed about not having a college degree. Each had decades of experience, which I believe would qualify them as experts. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg did not finish college. Are they not qualified to do what they did, or did in Steve Jobs' case? The Bachelor of Science degree gives some people their first job, and then it's how well they do the job and how productive they are determines how successful they are. For the financial impact on Livingston County, we are expected to rely on Jedi computer output. I spent a significant amount of my time over a dozen years auditing computer programs with computer programs I wrote. Major problems are garbage in, garbage out, and model the program to get a desired result or flawed coding. Just because it comes out of a computer, don't make it right. There's something we had when I was in systems. People screw stuff up, if you're really screwed up, put it on the computer. One of our companies hired an expert to determine the value of the industrial park the company had half interest in order to come up with sales price to the company, sales price to our company's partner. It's a pretty easy process. You agree on a discount rate to determine the present value of all future lease payments, in this case 10 years, and then you add to that present value the present value of the property in 10 years. I was told not to review it because the expert was the most respected in the area. And I was hoping you guys didn't know my area, but now you know. I asked for it, he gave me the floppy disk with the program on it. I took it to the office, my office, and started checking inputs. Well, we did not have used the current list of lease payments. So I put the correct ones in, and when I did that, the property value come up to $2 million more than what he had put down. He was very upset when I brought that back to him, because he was paid as an expert to value that property. And he had to keep it over the weekend and get back to me, which he did. With his projection based on new lease payments, what he did was put a modifier in his present value formula. So he still used the present value, I think it was 6%, I can't remember exactly. He put a modifier buried in the program to increase the discount rate so that the property value, even though it was higher inputs going into it reduced the value back to the original projected amount. I asked you to closely evaluate the proposed project and how it will affect the community today and in the future. Will the real benefit to the community offset the negatives to the extent that it should be approved? I have for one, do not think so. But I don't get to vote on the matter. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple follow-up questions to my client real quickly. You said you live in Urbandale, Mr. Drew? Have you been at all these meetings even though you live in Urbandale?
I'm staying out here for everyone else.
Okay.
Well, I went back a couple times and didn't have meetings, but I'm here for all.
But you've been to all the hearings?
I've been every hearing.
And you
every
mentioned,
board meeting.
and you mentioned your farm?
Yes.
Okay. Where is that in location of the wind turbines? You said 1,000 feet?
The farm that I have beneficial insurance that she owns part of is on the edge of the footprint. Footprint blocks us out of it. And there's a wind turbine to the north that's less than 1,000 feet. And there might be another one that's less, one in the south. I didn't count the other farm I got in the center of the footprint. I didn't bother to figure it out. I don't know who lives in that place. So okay.
And how many acres of farmland do you and your family own?
About 300.
Thank you.
40 of it's in McLean County, right across the line from.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Zier.
All right, Mr. Zier, do we have any questions? Do we have any questions from Mr. Zier?
All right. Units of local government, any questions for Mr. Zier? Mr. Blazer, do you have any questions of Mr. Zier?
Just a couple.
All right.
Mr. Zier, how long have you lived in Iowa?
19 years, September 1980. 35 years almost, 34.
So are you aware that there are over 100 wind farms in Iowa with a total of over 3,400 wind turbines currently operating?
Yep, well, I don't know that number. You go out west, you go about 20, 30 miles west of the border, you'll start picking up at least a few of them. But I was not popular anything like Indian Grove Township.
And are you aware that Iowa is in fact ranked third in the entire country in installed wind capacity?
I'm not surprised at that. I thought we were number 2. So my energy company out there is proud of having 25% of energy from wind turbines, except my rates are higher out there, so that irritates me a little bit.
Actually, are you aware that it's 27% that's generated by wind in Iowa?
Well, 25 is that's from Berkshire Hathaway's Mid-American Energy. I read that off their website, so well, maybe some other country because it is.
That's all.
All right. Anybody in the audience with questions of Mr. Zier? Anybody? CBA again, do we have anything? County staff, county council. Mr. Zier, thank you. All right, next on my list I have Mr. John Dassow.
Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Dassow has a PowerPoint presentation, and I don't know if we're set up for it here, so maybe that would be more appropriate to start Thursday night.
Okay.
That's what he advised me.
All right. Is there anybody else in the audience this evening that's on the list that has a shorter presentation? I see it pointing to you. Are you on my list?
County Dassel.
All right. I'm looking. Megan, say that again. Connie Dassow. All right, yeah, you're on my list. 15, 20 minutes? Oh yeah. All right, do it. Dassow, please raise your hand. You solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in this case and on here you shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please state your name and address, and then you may begin.
Connie Dassel, 3341 North, 3350 East, Chatsworth, Illinois. First of all, I'd like to thank the ZBA for the hard work and patience during this process. My husband and I live farm in the Chatsworth area, part of which has been in the family for around 150 years. Our son will be the 6th generation to farm this land. We both grew up in the country and feel there's no better place to raise a family. Living in the country allows us to enjoy the solitude, beautiful landscapes, and wildlife. It may be hard for some who have never experienced living on a farm to understand. A farm that your family has been on for generations, where you have invested your time and energy, and most of all, your heart and soul. We've had the pleasure of raising our 3 children on a beautiful farm that includes timber, native prairie, and numerous wetlands and ponds. We were Illinois' first wildlife landowner of the year and have been recognized for many conservation practices that we utilize on our land. We believe that the sustainability and preservation of the land is important for the persistence of agriculture for future generations. We are stewards of this land, and we want to be able to pass this down to future generations, knowing we did the best we could for the land. It is difficult for me to articulate those feelings that are so deep and personal. The ties to the land and wildlife. No matter the problems I may have, I always feel at peace when I walk in the beauty of the country. It is not a job to us. There is no doubt that it's a way of life, and you can't put a price on something like that. Around 2006, we were approached by the developer, and after doing our own research and talking to others, we decided that the risks significantly outweighed the benefits. That was over 8 years ago, and many more issues have come to light since then. Invenergy claims they work with communities to ensure that everyone is involved. It is evident that this couldn't be further from the truth with all the secrecy and dishonesty that has taken place. It saddens me that our communities have to deal with this. We're the ones who live here. We're the ones who have our whole lives invested here. And we will be the ones to pick up the pieces when Invenergy moves on to its next project. I pray that our children and grandchildren will not be left to suffer the consequences if this project is approved. The damage will be done, we can't go back. The pleasures that we have enjoyed here will no longer be. They will look out over a towering industrial park wondering why they have to deal with the possible harm to their farmland, roads, health, and safety, and most of all, their overall well-being. Listening to all the testimony, it is clear that there are significant risks associated with these industrial wind complexes. There seems to be little protection for non-participating landowners and homeowners. It infringes on our rights as property owners, possibly restricting what can and can't be done on our own property. Shouldn't we be safe and protected on our own property? My son and his wife are going to have 5 turbines within 3/4 of a mile of their house, closest one at half a mile. I am truly concerned for their health and safety. The testimonies given at these hearings have raised a lot of red flags and questions, many of which have been unaddressed, some purposefully and some just unknowns. In my eyes, the applicant has in no way proven that their project meets the criteria for a special use in an agricultural area. They do not guarantee that the people and animals in the area will not be affected by these industrial wind turbines. This project in no way provides benefits to agriculture, which is the #1 most important purpose of the comprehensive plan. This project will undoubtedly be injurious to the use and enjoyment of many properties and could ultimately affect value and future development of those properties. We, as citizens of Livingston County, do not want our county to be turned further into an industrial wind complex and feel the risks associated with this project are substantial. We ask that those of you who represent us deny this application. That's it.
Do we have any questions? ZBA questions? All right. Municipal government? Mr. Glazer? Mr. Lucas? All right. Anybody in the audience with questions, you can ask them. Get out there.
County staff, county council, no questions? Thank you. Do I have anybody else in the audience that would have signed? Oh, I got some hands in the back. Shorter presentations?
Yep.
Okay, come on up. What's your name?
Leslie Schneider.
Let's, okay. How do you say your last name?
Chenard.
All right.
I'll spell
Ms. Schnarr, please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you should give in this case down here shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please state your name and address for court order and spell your last name.
It's Leslie, and it's Chouinard, Chenard, 2785, Conley Road, Morristown. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'd like to thank the county board and the community for allowing me to take a few moments of your time tonight. For those of you who don't know me, I am Will Brucker's daughter. I would like to share my thoughts about the proposed wind turbine farm. As my mom stated, our family were the first white settlers in Livingston County 185 years ago in 1830. As people have moved into the county and settled with their families through the years, our farmlands have become prime farmland, which produces crops that the country relies on. There's been much discussion about the pros and cons of the wind turbines, and many opinions have been formed. The turbines have the potential for health hazards, tearing up prime farmland for easement rights, to the possibility of damaging field tiles with heavy equipment, to the possibility of huge expenses to the townships if the roads are not maintained properly, which the county board needs to take into consideration now what they had before. Let alone to think about the future, about the enormous task of decommissioning the turbines, and the thought of planning for the huge financial costs and pricing 30 years into the future. But another concern that I hope that the board has been investigating is how many acres of farmland will now not be used for crops to be harvested. As these wind turbines continue to spread themselves throughout the Midwest and near the balance of Livingston County and throughout the rest of Illinois, where many farmers rely on their crops to bring in money for their families, it is a shame that our county and our country will be raising less beans, corn, wheat, and other crops that for our country to live on and feed our livestock. This will raise the prices for everyday food, and we will have less harvest due to the turbines consuming up our prime farmland and farming acreage. My other concern that I hope that is really taken into consideration is the fact that many people through the years have chosen to find land to live on in the country like my ancestors and your ancestors. I myself, after being raised in the country, where my mom still lives on, with a little over 3 acres, I live on 5 acres and more. I love the peace and quiet, the starlit nights, watching the storm roll in, and the beautiful sunsets. I couldn't imagine having these huge turbines ruining my view. I feel for all the people that are currently living in the country for these same reasons. Not to necessarily have a business on their land, but just to live there for the love of being in the country, for the enjoyment of life, to raise animals just for fun, and personal use to teach and show their children the beauty of living outside of town. It is a shame that these families were not really considered as the wind turbines companies made their plans. There are many families with small acreage that are continuing to find out how many turbines will be surrounding them, like my mom having 7 in a 1 mile radius, and 3 more in a 1.5 mile radius of her. These other families living in the country are now feeling the same devastation of the possible future surroundings of turbines. This land of my mom's will be mine someday, and I will have the option of moving back here. However, the sight of being surrounded by turbines is not what I can envision for my future. I hope you as a board take into consideration the true impact of wind turbine their livestock. And to understand that by putting more turbines, our country and our county will continue to lose ground in roofing crops and harvesting by the loss of acreage of these turbines. I hope you put yourself into the shoes of these non-participants and the farmers who really weren't sure what they were signing up for and what they were saying yes to. And to take a drive in the country and see where these landowners live. And they take time to speak to them and put into record their views and feelings about the love of their homes and small acreage and see the impact the possible turbines could have in their future. And I hope that after you take that drive in the country and look around at what prime farmland is left, that you will vote no to the proposed wind turbines. Thank you.
Any questions? You got any questions? One quick, you said you were the daughter of?
Willa Brucker.
Okay. All right. Units of local government, any questions for Mr. Glazer? Mr. Lukens?
Are you involved with Spence Farms?
It's my family, yes, and I do go down there and work on the farm as well.
Thank you.
And help out my family.
Anybody in the audience with questions? Anybody out there with any questions? All right, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else out there with a shorter presentation? Anybody? Nobody's jumping up. 10, 15 minutes? Oh boy. That means the rest of you guys have big, long presentations. Oh boy. All right. Well, I guess. All right, come on up. What's your name?
Quinn's there.
Very good. All right. Mr. Zier, please raise your hand.
I will affirm.
Okay. You do solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that the testimony you shall give in this case found hearing will be the truth and nothing but the truth, or that you suffer the pains and penalties of perjury. All right. Please state your name and address for a court reporter.
Quinn Zier, QUI, 3283 North, 2300 East Road. Very good. Good evening. I'll make it quick, I promise you. I feel like I've sat through a lot of these hearings, and I've walked out of here time after time, and on the way home I just think about what I've heard, and which comes down to about 2 words. And I think about this every time, and I've told my wife about this and my kids, and I said, there's only 2 words to me that sum up what all this is about, and it's community support. During these past 5 months, we have had literally exhausting hours of testimony for and against the siting of this new wind farm project here in our county. And my intention tonight is not to talk about any of these details. I think we've all heard enough of that. The very first nights, back in November, sitting up there in Pontiac, I wrote 3 questions down in this notebook. They're probably worthless in the minds of about everybody, but my question was, I said, and this was in reference to Mr. Parzik's opening presentation, and I have to quote it when he said here, he had just shown the video, and he said, "Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The point I'd like to stress is that, as stated in the video, it's important for us that we work very closely with the community, and we have acceptance in our communities. We stand by what we say." And I believe that. I would think if I was in their situation, frankly, that's about the biggest thing that has to happen if you're going to have success. I think about any business that comes into our area wants the acceptance of the community and want the community support. So what I wrote down that night was I said in your opening presentation, On Invenergy, you reference community acceptance and community support as being important to your company, citing wind farm. What do these terms mean? And throughout these last several months, I think I've thought about this a lot, and I've tried to figure out myself, what does that mean? Because I think it might mean different things to different people. There's acceptance, that's maybe one thing, and there's support. I'm never really here to give you big definitions. There are all kinds of definitions and everything else, but I'm going to give you a couple of examples personally that I've thought about, and this is what it means to me. Back, well, there are 2 Novembers back now, when the tornado hit over Washington, Illinois, our farm got aftermath, so we got the follow-up wind and all the turbulence, and my brother and I were out there about 12:30 that afternoon when that hit, and we watched our calf hutches sucked up into the air, and they were 1 to 2 miles away. A lot of them, we had 160-some calves running around. At first we thought we were going to fix this ourselves, and we kind of just hoped and prayed that they weren't going to all blow away. And within 10 minutes of that storm hitting, our first neighbor from across the section came driving over, and he said, "Hey, I thought you guys might need some help." And literally over the next hour and a half, we don't even know the count, but we probably had between 70 and 90 people show up. They helped us, they pitched in, and after about 8 hours, about 9 o'clock that night, when we were shutting down all eating pizza in the shop, we had everything back how it was supposed to be. The calves put away, bedded. We were overwhelmed. I mean, that's community support. Not just because of who we are, but that's what our community does. And I think Brucker referred to that, and I appreciated very much our comments on that behalf. One more example I thought of was I'm also I'm a board member for Cellcast right now in Southeast Livingston County Ambulance Service, and last month Cellcast moved into that new building that Brucker referred to. That cost over $600,000. We didn't use any money from tax dollars or from operating. That was all from our community. And that is very humbling to us. That building was completely paid for because of the generous donation from memorials, fundraising. That was our community. And I think that's the kind of community that we live in. I think, frankly, that's probably why we're struggling with this whole topic. I would assume that for a project like the Pleasant Ridge Wind Project to be successful, it will need community support before moving ahead. It seems to me that the men and women that would construct this wind farm would want community support. When they're out in our area, they're out in our fields, and they're on our farms. And I would assume that the Livingston County Board and the ZBA would also want to see strong community support before you give a special use permit to this project. I had thought about this, and I thought, how do we do this? That I had some ideas that came to my head, and they might seem trivial or funny to some of you, I don't know, but I would propose that before moving ahead with this project, each of the participating landowners be contacted as to their desire for further participation. Because many of these people are neighbors, fellow farmers, and they're my personal friends. And I think I know how they feel. And I think a lot of them feel like they're a little bit caught. And it sounds like a blunt way to say it. Some of them counting on you to get them off of it. It's the bottom line. I have heard all kinds of people stop by the farm, we'll jump in the pickup and talk, and I've heard all kinds of different comments. One is, my dad signed up and now our situation has changed. And I know you've heard that, but it has changed. Many were told that their neighbors were signed up, but they later found out that they weren't. Some say we don't want towers if our neighbors don't. And I believe that, because that is how we operate in our area. Some say my understanding was that this was just an exploratory research effort and I would be asked before they would build on my land, and that was a little hard for me to believe. But that is what that person understood from what he was told, and I'm not meaning to discredit anybody. I think we all have ways of doing business, and probably put together something like this in 39 townships, I think it would be tough. Especially in an area like ours where we have a lot of small parcel ownership. Because a lot of these are sited in areas where there's a very few large tracts of land that are signed up, and it does make it a lot easier. So I'm somewhat sympathetic that it could be tough in an area like ours. I know someone said, you know, I'm signed up, but I don't want them if my tenant doesn't want them. Now they no longer farming it, now it's a tenant and family. They said if they're not comfortable with it, I'm not comfortable with it. I've heard some say we're just kind of hoping this is going to go away. And I don't know what that means, but that is a common comment. And there are some that are saying we don't want towers, but we can't say anything or we might breach our contract. That I kind of struggle with because I guess I feel like a lot of us in the farming community, we sign contracts for lots of different things. And when we become uncomfortable with something, we don't sit down and talk about it, and a lot of times the contract has changed. And this is a quote by Dad, and it's maybe something that he's taught us, and maybe I'm taking it out of context, but he told us over and over when we were kind of honed in on something, he'd say, boys, a wise man changes his mind. And I would tell you I've had to do that many times in my life, and I'm not saying I don't know where your mind's at on this, but I think these are things that we really have to think about. I mean, the support, the community that we're living in is really crucial. There have been people out doing work in our area the last few months. They pressure tested the roads back in the summer. There were survey crews coming across the fields. They did 2 times the track machines bored in test holes. We know this is ground that we farm. And gentleman was taking pictures, and they were doing the architectural, archaeological study. And some of our neighbors as well as ourselves, we talked to these people. And they have said they have never seen this much opposition anywhere they have gone before. I don't know what that means, but in my mind, I'm not sure that's real strong community support. In our community, we have been blessed. We care about each other and what our neighbor thinks. And we help each other even if we don't always see eye to eye on every issue. And I'm saying that because I have personal friends that probably are on the other side of this issue. And frankly, we don't want this to change. I think it's important because we are in an area where we do care about each other. And during these past 5 months, I've asked myself, does the Pleasant Ridge Wind Energy Project have community support? And just to sum up what I've said here tonight, which is probably very trivial, I'm just asking each one of you to answer this question for yourself.
ZBA, is there any questions at this time? Municipal government. Mr. Blazer, Mr. Lukians. Anybody in the audience with any questions for Mr. Zier? Anybody out there? County staff, county council? Okay. All right, ZBA again. Thank you. Looking ahead, we're going to be at the Walton Center on the 9th at 6:30. The 13th, April 13th. Do we know the venue yet on that? Sure. All right, we'll know more on Thursday with regard to that. I'm going to run through some names that are left on the list here. So if your name is called, we're getting close. So I'm not going to be able to skip over a lot. I'm just going to go in number. This is not going to be the order they'll probably be called, but Carol Knapp, George Bush, Terry Cope, Carolyn Gerwin, John Schlegel, Warren Gillette, Adam Followell, Glenn Schroff, Jerome Kurtenbach. I'll give you this list. Cheryl Hoffman, Jeff Bryan, Carrie Followell, Tom Ambrose, Matthew Keisner, John Hayes, Ruth Wessels, Mary Russell, Kent Zimmerman, Dieter Elbert, John Freed, Megan Dassow, John Dassow, Joe Whitman, Sharon Schroff, Lori Scherer, John Scherer, sorry, it's pretty good. John Rich. That's all the names left on my list. There are a lot.
Mr. Chairman, I think lines 19 and 24, Mr. Schroff and Mr. Kurtenbach had already said they were not.
Okay.
So I mean, you can call them again, but that was our understanding talk.
All right. We'll, 19 and 24.
19 and 24.
19 and 24. Okay. With that, I think we're at a good spot to stop this evening. I need a motion to recess. Get some motions.